G'day guys, my name's Nick and welcome back to another video. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking to you all about Rivnuts and Nutserts, how they work, what's the best way to use them, and the best gun to use for your application. So let's jump over to the workbench and we'll get stuck into it. Alright guys, welcome to the workbench. So what you can see here is a King Chrome Nut Riveter kit. So these do go by a couple of different names. They can be known as a Nut Riveter, Nutserts, or Rivnuts, but all in all they're exactly the same thing and they work in the same way. So basically what we have here is the Nut Riveter Gun. We have a few different size mandrels and we have some nose pieces. So the Rivnuts here, or Nutserts, whatever you want to call them, they're in different sizes depending on the size hole and the size thread that you want to use. So now I'll show you guys how it can be used and where you might install it. Let's say you've just installed a light bar kit to your four-wheel drive and now you have a relay in the engine bay with nowhere to go. So what some people might do is find the closest convenient location. They'll get a big dirty self-tapper screw and they'll send that through into the panel work and call it a day. Now what that is really unprofessional and it's definitely going to cause issues with rusting, corrosion down the track, because now you've got an untreated hole in the vehicle which is going to cause issues with rust. So what the best option for this is to install a Nutsert. So how we do that is we select a bolt that fits through here perfectly. So you can see the M6 bolt fits through there really nicely. From there we can come down here and grab our M6 Nutsert, and what we just want to do is just make sure that the thread in the Nutsert is the same thread as what's on our bolt. So you can see that's threading in nicely, so we know they're the same thread and that Nutsert should work perfectly. And now we just need to select the correct size drill bit for the Nutsert. So you can do this a few different ways. If you do have vernier calipers, you can measure the thickness of the Nutsert shank here and then get a drill bit that's slightly larger, or you can just use the method that I have and you just hold the end of the drill bit up against the end of the Nutsert and make sure that it is just ever so slightly larger than the Nutsert shank here, and that should be a perfect fit. So you do have to be a little bit careful that you don't get a drill bit too big, because if you make the hole too big it will make it really difficult for this Nutsert to grip on correctly. So now we've got the correct size drill bit for our Nutsert. So what we can do now is take our drill bit, drill the hole in the panel, mount the Nutsert in the panel, and use our Nut Riveter gun to crush the Nutsert and permanently mount this in that panel. And now our Nutsert is permanently crushed into the panel. We can take our relay and M6 bolt and we can install that in our desired location. And we can tighten that up really nice and tight because we have a really solid mount in that panel now. So you can use a Nutsert on pretty much any flat metal surface. So as long as the panel isn't too thick, it can be a few millimeters thick, but you do need to allow for a bit of room here for this to crush down and crimp onto the panel. And also as long as the panel is flat enough for the head of the Nutsert to sit against it flush, then you should be okay to use a Nutsert in that location. So the way the Nutsert actually grips the panel is with these little teeth on the head of the Nutsert. So some Nutserts do have the little teeth down the side here, but they all work in the same way. So when we put the Nutsert on our special tool and crush it into the panel, these little teeth are gripping onto the panel as well and cause it to crimp down extremely tightly and ensure that it's not going to twist or move when we tighten it down. Now I've demonstrated just how handy Nutserts can be. What I'm going to do is show you guys exactly how to use the Nut Riveter gun to install a Nutsert to a metal panel. So now it's time to install the Rivnut to the metal panel. So like I said before, the first step is to make sure that we have the correct size bolt for the item that we're trying to mount, and then we need to match that bolt to the correct size Rivnut. So I'm going to use the demonstration that I used before of mounting the relay. So we're going to mount this relay to the panel. Now what we can do is select the correct size drill bit, which we've already done, which is down here in the drill, and we're going to drill the hole in the panel and then use the Rivnut gun to mount the Rivnut. If you are drilling into steel, you may need to start with a smaller size drill bit as a pilot hole and then work your way up to the correct size drill bit. But because we're drilling into aluminium today, I'm just going to use the right size drill bit and drill straight through. So let's get stuck into it. Now I've drilled a really nice hole into this aluminium panel. Now we can move on to installing the nutsert into the panel. Now if this was steel, what we'd want to do would be to deburr the hole and also apply some rust preventative to the hole before we install the nutsert. So now we're ready to install the M6 nutsert into the panel. So what we do is we select our M6 mandrel and nose piece, and we grab our Nut Riveter Gun, and we can put this together to crush this into the panel. Now if you were selecting an M3, 4 or 5 nutsert, you just use the different mandrels and different nose pieces in the kit. Now it's time to assemble the Nut Riveter Gun. So what we need to do is we get the mandrel and nose piece, and we just take that apart, and in the back of the gun there is a thread, so we just screw the mandrel into the thread in the back of the gun. And we just nip that up finger tight, and then we grab the nose piece here and we just screw that onto the front of the gun, into the thread. And we just want to leave this loose for a bit until we get our Rivnut on there and we can adjust it up properly. So now we can just release the little latch, open the Rivnut gun up like this, and then we can screw our Rivnut onto the end of the mandrel. And we just want to see the end of the mandrel thread coming through all the way and just stopping flush with the end of the thread of the nutsert. So now we can just adjust the thread here to make sure that we have a good amount of leverage on these handles. So what we want to do is just double check that we can get both hands around here, because it does take quite a bit of effort. So we want to be able to get both hands around there and be able to crush this into the panel in one go. So that seems like a pretty good spot. So once we find a good spot, we can lock it off with this nut. If it is too far apart for your hands to reach, or if it's too close together, you can just adjust it by winding the nose piece in or out as desired. So that's pretty good. So we'll just lock it off with the little nut here. We just do that finger tight and the back's finger tight. And now that's in a pretty good spot so that we can just rivet this straight into the panel. So now the Rivnut gun is assembled, I'll show you guys exactly how to crush it into the panel. Now it's time to install the nutsert into the panel. So we can just put it through the hole like this. And now we just need to squeeze the handles on the nutsert gun as hard as we can. So it will take a fair bit of effort, because what we're doing is pulling this nutsert together, which in turn will squish it down and crush it onto the back of the panel. So I'll crush this onto the panel now and let you guys see what it does. Now if it doesn't fully crush, what you can do is wind it in just a little bit more and then re-crush it just that little bit extra. But that's gone all the way home, so that's crushed all the way. And that's a really tight connection now into that panel. So you can just unscrew the mandrel, which takes it out of the nutsert, and we can take the gun out. So this is the front of the panel, and you can see the front of the nutsert there. Now just behind the head of the nutsert, there's those little teeth which I showed you before, which grip onto the panel. And if I turn it all the way around, you can see the back of the nutsert there, which is now crimped onto the back of the panel. Now this is an extremely strong connection, and this is going to be a perfect spot for us to mount our relay. Now I can get my relay and my Allen key bolt, and I can start to thread that into the panel. Now I'll just nip it up with an Allen key. Perfect. So now I've got the relay mounted to the panel. You can see just how good that connection is. So I'm able to do that bolt up nice and tight, so the relay is really secure, it's not going anywhere, and I also don't have any open holes in the back in the panel that are going to cause rust or issues down the track. So I really think this is one of the best ways you can possibly mount something in your vehicle. If it's possible to use a Rivnut or a nutsert, I think you definitely should. So just take the extra time to mount it properly. It means you won't have issues down the track with items falling off or rusting in your panels. Just out of curiosity, I did a little test to see just how thick the panel could be that you can use the Rivnut gun in. So on the right here is a 3mm thick panel of aluminium, and on the left is a 1mm thick panel of aluminium. And what you can see on the back here is you can see that the 3mm panel of aluminium didn't allow the Rivnut to crush down completely, but it is still an extremely tight connection there. So it has still crushed it into the panel, and it's really tight. So it's not going anywhere, but it hasn't really crushed it down properly, just like you see here on the 1mm thick piece of aluminium. So Ideally, I believe probably between 1 to 2 millimeters would probably be the best thickness for these Rivnuts, but you could go up to about 3 millimeters if you really had to, but it's just not going to crush the back of the Rivnut onto the panel as well as it would with a thinner piece of material. So if you're sitting there thinking, Nick, I really need an M8, M10, M12, M14, even bigger Nutserts than these, and that's perfectly fine, but this little Nut Rivet gun won't really be suited for that purpose. So there is a couple of different styles of kits on the market, and this is the King Chrome Compact Riveter Gun. So this is basically for the smaller Nutserts, and you can get a larger King Chrome kit, or even other brands on the market as well, which use a different method, which are a lot stronger and have longer arms to make the nut riveting a lot easier. So the difference between this smaller nut riveter kit and the larger ones on the market are this nut riveter is perfect for getting in tight, really small spaces, which is exactly what you use it for in the automotive industry. You use it for in the engine bay, which it can be difficult sometimes to get some of those larger nut rivet guns in the right position. So there you have it, guys. That's exactly how easy it is to use a nut riveter gun to install a Nutsert to your metal panel. So this is an extremely helpful little tool, and it can be used in so many different ways if you're modifying or accessorizing your vehicle. So you can use this in your canopy, in your tray, in your tub, under your engine bay, pretty much anywhere in the vehicle that you have a 1 to 2 millimeter metal panel. So this can also be used around home for a bunch of different things. Your imagination is pretty much the limit. So this is an awesome alternative to tech screws, damn tech screws, because when you use tech screws, you know, it's untreated metal, you're sending the tech screw in, and sometimes the tech screw just rips the metal out and it just goes loose straight away. So it's a horrible way to mount things, a tech screw. The right way to mount things is with a Nutsert and a nut riveter gun. So let me know down in the comments, guys, if you already have one of these Nutsert guns and what you've used it for. I'd be really keen to hear what you guys have been using these guns for and how long you've had them for. What I'm going to do, guys, is drop a link down in the comments and the description below to this King Chrome Nutsert gun so you guys can check it out. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. If you did enjoy this video, please hit that subscribe button, give it a big thumbs up, and stay tuned for the next video. Cheers, guys.